You say you're ready for the next level. You feel the pull toward more freedom, more peace, more love, more abundance. And yet, despite all your efforts, all your affirmations, all your hard-earned awareness, life still feels stuck. You can see the door, but it won't open. And deep down you wonder, what am I missing? Owen Hermstring offers a simple but soul-piercing answer in The Law Behind the Laws. You cannot expand while your signal still vibrates with survival. And once you understand that, everything begins to make sense. Because survival is not just a mindset, it's an energetic frequency. It's the invisible setting your nervous system stays locked into long after the danger is gone. It's the muscle memory of bracing for rejection, scanning for abandonment, expecting disappointment. Even if your outer world has changed, if your inner world still vibrates in reaction to old wounds, your energy will prioritize safety over transformation. And safety at the survival level means keeping everything exactly the same. You may be dreaming of growth, but if the foundation of your signal is fear, fear of being seen, fear of failure, fear of losing love, the field will not deliver expansion. It can't. Hermstring makes it clear. The field mirrors the signal, not the desire. You can only receive what your system believes it's safe to experience, and your system doesn't respond to your vision board. It responds to the tone in your body when you speak your desire out loud. This is why people repeat the same cycles even after years of personal development. They keep returning to the same emotional frequency: control, overthinking, proving, performing. These are not bad habits. They are survival strategies, energetic echoes of an earlier time, when shrinking, pleasing, or pushing were the only ways to feel safe. And because those patterns worked back then, your nervous system still clings to them, even if they're now the very things blocking your evolution. You think you're making conscious choices, but survival doesn't live in the conscious mind. It lives in your breath, your posture, your pace. You rush through life not because you're driven, but because slowing down feels unfamiliar. You over-prepare not because you're thorough, but because ease feels dangerous. You avoid intimacy not because you're not ready, but because your body still associates closeness with pain. So the question is not, what do I want? The question is, what am I still bracing for? What scenario is your nervous system quietly rehearsing behind your smile? What part of your field still believes life is a battlefield and success means exposure and love leads to loss? You can't expand while you're still armoring against the very thing you desire. And here's the twist. Survival frequency doesn't look chaotic from the outside. It often looks functional, productive, responsible. But energetically, it's tight, it's closed, it's self-protective. And Hermstring reminds us, you can't receive what your energy is too tense to hold. This is where the real shift happens. Not by striving harder, but by softening. Not by pushing for more, but by learning how to breathe where you used to flinch. Expansion begins when you stop bracing. When you stop micromanaging your healing. When you stop performing alignment and actually feel what it's like to be in a body that trusts life again. So, if life feels stuck, it's not because the future doesn't exist. It's because your signal is still frozen in the past. And the field, in its infinite wisdom, is waiting for you to thaw. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just vibrating at a frequency that says, I need to survive. But there's a deeper frequency underneath that. One that says, I'm allowed to thrive now. That's the version of you the future is waiting to meet, not the one who fights for the dream, but the one who finally realizes she no longer has to. You've asked for change, again and again. You've journaled about it, meditated on it, prayed for it, visualized it until you could almost feel it breathing beside you. You've done the courses, repeated the mantras, followed the rituals, and yet nothing changes. Or worse, it changes for a moment, then dissolves. It's enough to make you wonder if something is broken. But it's not. Owen Hermstring tells us exactly why in The Law Behind the Laws, you cannot receive a new life while transmitting the signal of the old one. The field listens to vibration, not words. This is where most people get stuck. They believe change comes from doing something different. But Hermstring insists change begins when you become someone different energetically. If your outer behavior is new but your internal signal is still tangled in the past, still heavy with guilt, still tight with control, still haunted by failure, then the life you're asking for has nowhere to land. The signal is still too familiar to the old story. You can't outrun a signal. You can't overachieve your way out of it. Because the universe isn't watching what you do, it's listening to what you are. You say you want love, but your signal is still calibrated to heartbreak. You want abundance, but your field is pulsing with lack. You want peace, but every cell in your body is still waiting for the next disappointment. That's not a flaw. It's the residue of an emotional history your body hasn't finished releasing. And here's the trap. You think because your mind is clear, your energy must be too. But energy doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in tone, in vibration, in the subtle frequency of your breath when no one is watching. Hermstring says it clearly. You are not blocked by intention. You are blocked by resonance. Your field is still echoing a frequency that contradicts what you say you want. That's the invisible rule we break every day. We ask for change without changing the signal. And then we interpret the delay as punishment or failure, when in fact the field is simply waiting for coherence, not perfection, coherence. A clean signal that says, this is who I am now, not just in words, in tone, in nervous system, in field. So what does that shift look like? It looks like no longer asking from desperation. It looks like not needing constant signs to prove you're on the right path. It looks like trusting the process enough to stop broadcasting panic every time things slow down. Most of all, it looks like choosing to embody the emotional state of the version of you who already lives the life you're calling in, even if nothing in your external world has changed yet. And that's where the real work is. Because when you make peace with the now, when you stop arguing with your current reality, when you stop clinging to old emotional signatures, you naturally rise in frequency. And your signal, once distorted by history, begins to reflect who you're becoming, not who you used to be. Hermstring reminds us, your new life begins when your energy stops defending the old one. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is stop vibrating like someone waiting for change to happen. Instead, you vibrate like someone who knows the shift has already occurred, inside, quietly, invisibly. And from that place, you don't chase change, you allow it. Because your signal now speaks a different language, one that the universe understands without needing words. You don't remember signing them. No ceremony, no warning, no ink on paper. And yet they exist, etched somewhere deep in your nervous system. Invisible agreements, the ones you didn't consciously choose but still obey every day. You agreed to stay small, to not surpass those who raised you. You agreed to carry the guilt of someone else's failure, to prove your worth by suffering longer than necessary. You agreed to dim your light so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. These weren't logical choices. They were emotional bindings, absorbed like smoke in a burning house. Owen Hermstring calls them energetic contracts made in pain, enforced in silence. These contracts are dangerous because they're invisible. You don't see them, but you feel their grip every time you try to rise. Every time success feels like betrayal. Every time joy feels unsafe. Every time peace feels unfamiliar. And the worst part is, you think it's just you. You think you're sabotaging yourself. But in truth, you're simply honoring an old agreement that was never yours to carry in the first place. Hermstring explains that many people walk around trapped not by what they want, but by what they subconsciously agreed to believe was possible. Agreements made with parents, teachers, cultures, even trauma. Agreements like, I have to work hard to deserve rest, or love always leaves, or people like me never get ahead. These are not facts. They are programs. And unless you bring them into awareness, they will rule your life like laws written in invisible ink. Why are they so powerful? Because they are emotional in nature. They weren't taught to you in a classroom. They were embedded in moments of fear, abandonment, shame. You learned them when your body was still learning what safety feels like. That's why you keep obeying them, because to break them feels like breaking a rule that kept you alive. But Hermstring says something powerful. These contracts may have kept you safe once, but now they keep you stuck. There comes a moment in every life when the old agreements begin to feel like chains, when the price of loyalty to the past becomes too high, when playing small no longer protects anyone, it only punishes you. So how do you know what agreements you've made? You pay attention to the moment you shrink, the moment you feel guilt after receiving, the moment you flinch at praise. The moment your voice trembles not from fear, but from the weight of a rule you no longer want to follow. These are the fault lines, the places where the contract lives. Hermstring says, your body always remembers the rule you haven't broken yet. The key isn't to fight these agreements, it's to see them, bring them into light. Ask yourself, whose voice is this? Whose rule am I still obeying? What part of me believes I owe someone my suffering? Often, the moment of clarity is enough to begin dissolving the spell, because what was made in pain can be released in truth. You don't need permission to rewrite these laws, you only need awareness. You are allowed to be the first in your family to heal. You are allowed to have more ease than your ancestors. You are allowed to change the story without dishonoring where you came from. In fact, by doing so, you set everyone else free too, and perhaps that's the most beautiful part. When you break the old agreements, you don't become a rebel. You become a liberator. You stop being the one who repeats the pattern and you become the one who ends it. So if your life feels like it's circling the same block again and again, ask yourself, what old promise am I still trying to keep? And more importantly, who am I ready to become once I break it? Hermstring puts it simply, every transformation begins with the courage to say, this contract no longer defines me. That moment isn't loud, it's quiet, private, unseen, but the ripple it sends into your field is undeniable, and from that moment on, everything begins to change. You keep asking. You keep visualizing, you keep hoping, but nothing changes. The life you want still feels far away, like you're shouting across a canyon, and your echo is the only thing that comes back. Owen Hermstring would tell you, you're not attracting what you desire, you're amplifying what you resist. It sounds subtle, but it's the difference between movement and stagnation, between magnetism and repulsion. Most people don't realize it. They think desire is enough, that wanting something hard enough, clearly enough, will bring it closer. But what they're really vibrating with is not the frequency of having, it's the frequency of fearing they never will. The desire becomes a mask. Underneath it, there's anxiety, doubt, disappointment. And energy doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you transmit. Hermstring says, your field is honest, even when your words are not. You might be declaring abundance, but your nervous system is rehearsing lack. You might be visualizing love, but your breath shortens every time someone gets too close. You might be praying for freedom, but your actions are still laced with control. This is resistance, and resistance isn't loud. It's quiet, tense, subtle. It lives in your shoulders, your hesitation, your mistrust. And it cancels your signal, no matter how sincere your desire might be. The problem isn't that you don't want it. The problem is that you want it so badly that you've wrapped it in fear. Fear of not having it, fear of not being ready, fear of losing it if it comes. That fear is what fills your frequency. And the universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you actually feel is safe. This is where people get stuck. They think the solution is to want it harder, to push more. But pushing only strengthens resistance. Hermstring uses the metaphor of water. Desire is flow, resistance is tension, and tension never creates clarity. If you're clenched, the current can't move through you, no matter how bright your vision board is. So how do you dissolve resistance? First, you must feel it, not with judgment, but with honesty. Where does it live in your body? What stories come up when you think about receiving what you want? What part of you flinches at the idea of ease, joy, or worthiness? Resistance is not a flaw, it's a protection. It shows you where your system doesn't feel safe yet. And safety must come before alignment. Hermstring encourages people to slow down, not to give up, but to reconnect. He teaches that when your nervous system feels safe, your field becomes clean. When your breath deepens, your message becomes clear, and when your energy stops leaking into fear, desire becomes a current instead of a craving. This is where things shift. When you release the grip, the reality you want stops feeling so far away. You no longer beg for it, you become it. Because you're no longer resisting what you asked for, you're receiving it. It sounds almost too simple, but the truth is, the less you resist, the more you attract, because without resistance, there's no noise in your frequency, just signal, just clarity, just embodiment. And this embodiment is powerful. It means you no longer chase, it comes toward you. You no longer doubt, you expect. You no longer perform alignment, you are aligned. This is the state Hermstring refers to as energetic congruence. It doesn't mean life is perfect, it means your inner and outer world are finally speaking the same language. That's where power lives. So if you're tired of feeling like you're doing everything right, but still feel stuck. Pause. Feel. Ask yourself, what am I afraid would happen if this came true? And listen. That answer will tell you where your resistance lives, because it's not about forcing reality to change. It's about releasing what blocks you from receiving the version of it that's already trying to find you. There's a difference between creating and controlling. Most people don't see it until everything they've tried to create starts feeling heavy, rigid, exhausting. Owen Hermstring explains this distinction clearly. Creation is born from trust. Control is born from fear. And when you're stuck in control, you're not actually co-creating with the universe. You're trying to dominate it, predict it, bend it. And that's not flow. It's friction. You can recognize when you've fallen into control by how tight your life feels. Every decision becomes a calculation. Every move feels like a test. Every moment of uncertainty becomes something to fix, not feel. Hermstring calls this energetic micromanagement. When your nervous system is on high alert and your mind believes it must direct every single outcome or everything will fall apart. This isn't power. This is panic dressed up as productivity, and the consequences are subtle but devastating. When you're controlling, your energy gets stuck in future outcomes instead of present alignment. You're no longer acting from inspiration, but from strategy, from manipulation, from fear of losing something you don't even have yet. You begin to confuse precision with safety. You start to believe that if you can just think far enough ahead, plan well enough, hustle hard enough, you can guarantee the result. But that's not how real creation works. Creation, as Hermstring teaches, is a collaboration. You bring the frequency, the field brings the form. You don't chase outcomes, you hold resonance, you don't fight for visibility, you radiate alignment. And when you're truly aligned, things begin to organize around you. Not because you're pushing, but because you're embodying. But control interrupts that dance. It sends a signal of distrust to the field. It says, I don't believe this will work unless I force it. And the moment you force it, you distort it, you choke the flow, you delay what was already moving toward you. Hermstring reminds us, what's meant for you can't reach you if you keep blocking the path with your fear. This fear often comes from old programming. Maybe you were raised to believe that safety only comes from certainty, that good things must be earned through struggle, that if you're not fighting, you're not growing. But that narrative was never about creation, it was about survival. And survival is not the energy of expansion. If you want to move out of control and into creation, you must first soften. Yes, soften. Not collapse, not give up. Just stop gripping so tightly. You need to feel where you've been holding on because you don't trust yourself, or the field, or your timing. You must see where you've replaced intuition with strategy, where you've ignored ease because it felt unfamiliar, where you've mistaken resistance for responsibility. Hermstring invites us to ask one question when we feel the urge to control. Am I doing this because I feel aligned or because I feel afraid? That question alone can unravel years of chronic efforting. It brings you back to the body, to the truth, to the present. Because real creation is not chaotic, but it is unpredictable. It doesn't come with a map, it comes with momentum. And your job isn't to dictate every detail, it's to hold the tone, to hold the vision. To hold the self who already knows that what she desires is not a fantasy, but a mirror, a reflection of who she's becoming. When you create from alignment, you can let go of timing because your trust is anchored. You stop rushing because you know nothing real is late. You stop comparing because you know your signal is unique. And most importantly, you stop burning yourself out trying to control what was never your job to carry. Creation is your power. Control is your prison. One expands you. The other contracts you. One connects you to the field, the other disconnects you from your source. And when you choose creation, life doesn't just respond, it reorganizes, around you, for you, through you. So ask yourself today, am I creating or am I controlling? And dare to choose the version of you who doesn't need to fight to be seen, known, or fulfilled. She's already the one the universe recognizes. You want change. You're working for it, visualizing it, asking for it. And yet, it never quite arrives, or if it does, it slips away before you can hold it. You start to think maybe you're unlucky, maybe life just isn't fair, maybe you're missing some hidden step. But the truth Owen Hermstring points to is sharper, more uncomfortable and more liberating than any of that. The field does not deliver to the identity you pretend to be. It delivers to the identity you are loyal to. This is what he calls the trap of identity misalignment. You say you want to live in abundance, but you still identify as the struggler. You say you want deep love, but you still carry the identity of someone who's always left behind. You say you want freedom, but your self-concept is still wrapped in the role of someone who has to fight for every scrap of joy. The words you speak and the actions you take cannot override the identity your energy is still embodying. This is why you may feel like you're moving in circles, because you are. You're asking for a life that belongs to a future identity, while still living inside the energetic clothes of your past. And the field cannot deliver expansion to an identity that rejects it. Hermstring explains it plainly. Identity coherence is the silent law. Until who you believe you are matches what you desire, reality remains on hold. Think about it. If you still see yourself as the outsider, how will you ever feel safe in a room where you're fully seen? If you still believe you are unworthy, how will you trust abundance when it arrives? If you still wear the identity of the abandoned, how can intimacy feel safe even if it shows up? The truth is you can't, because reality will never violate the identity you protect most fiercely. And here's the twist. Most people don't consciously choose these identities. They inherited them, built them out of survival. They became the hard worker, the self-sacrificer, the quiet one, the rebel, not because it was their truth, but because it kept them safe. Those roles worked once. They helped you navigate your environment. But now, they're outdated. And the pain you feel today is the pain of trying to create a new life with an old identity. Hermstring says, when your identity expires, but you keep wearing it, friction will follow you everywhere. That friction is what you call stuck. That's why no matter how much you do, things don't move, because you're trying to manifest through an energetic filter that cancels your expansion before it can reach you. So what's the way forward? It's not about rejecting the old identity. It's about releasing your loyalty to it. It's about thanking the version of you who wore those clothes, who carried that role, who fought to survive. And then choosing to step into coherence with who you are now, not who you used to be. You don't manifest a new life by demanding it. You manifest it by becoming the version of you who already feels at home in it. That doesn't mean faking confidence or pretending to be someone you're not. It means softening into the truth that you are no longer the abandoned one, the struggler, the outsider. You are more now, and the field is waiting for you to admit it, because the moment your identity shifts, everything else follows. Opportunities feel natural instead of overwhelming. Love feels safe instead of terrifying. Abundance feels deserved instead of accidental. And peace feels like your baseline instead of a fleeting luxury. That's the power of coherence. So if you're tired of asking for things that never come, stop focusing only on the desire. Ask instead, who am I still being that contradicts what I'm asking for? Because when the self-concept aligns with the vision, the signal becomes undeniable. And the universe doesn't hesitate. It simply reflects back the identity you've finally chosen to live. You're aligned, you've cleared the noise, you've broadcasted the signal, you've done the work. And then, silence. Days pass, weeks, months. The result doesn't come, the shift doesn't happen, the dream doesn't land, and so, you collapse. Not physically, but energetically, quietly. You doubt the path, you doubt yourself, you try something else, anything else. You chase a new method, switch strategies, tighten your routines. All the while, what you really changed was your frequency. You fell out of alignment because you thought the delay meant something had gone wrong. Owen Hermstring calls this the collapse point, and he warns that most people never make it through. Not because they're lazy, not because they're unworthy, but because they misread the silence. They treat the delay as denial when in truth it's calibration. He writes, the field does not operate on your clock. It doesn't respond to your panic. It responds to the steadiness of your signal in the silence between your ask and your arrival. That silence is the space where most people fall apart. They beg the universe to hurry, they grip tighter, they lose the identity they just stepped into. And unknowingly, they send a new signal, one rooted in fear, in lack, in disbelief. The field responds accordingly, not with punishment, but with reflection. You don't get what you ask for. You get what you hold. And holding your signal during the delay is the true test. It's easy to be confident when results are instant. It's easy to feel aligned when the world applauds your choices. But what about when nothing is happening? What about when your bank account doesn't change, your inbox stays empty, and your reality looks identical to your past? That's when most people send out a new transmission. This doesn't work. I knew it wouldn't happen. Maybe I'm cursed. And the field, ever honest, reflects that new signal back to them. Hermstring says, "You think time is the obstacle. It's not. Your mistrust of time is." So why does the delay exist at all? Why not manifest instantly? Because the delay serves a function. It stabilizes identity. The longer you hold the new identity without proof, the deeper it roots. The field watches not just what you ask, but who you're willing to be when nothing confirms your choice. Can you still believe in your worth when the money hasn't come? Can you still feel lovable when no one's texting back? Can you still feel powerful when your metrics flatline? If you can, the signal becomes irreversible. You become non-negotiable. The reality must follow, because your identity has stopped collapsing under pressure. And here's where most people misunderstand the delay. They think it's punishment. It's not. It's integration. Your system is learning how to hold joy without fearing loss, how to hold power without self-sabotage, how to hold love without shrinking. That's not instant work. That's sacred work. So if you're in the in-between, between the version of you who asked and the version of you who receives, understand this. Nothing is broken. You are not blocked. You are not cursed. You are simply learning how to stop collapsing when life doesn't move fast enough for your fear. Because when you can walk through the delay without broadcasting panic, that's when reality bends, not out of magic, but because your signal finally stopped blinking, and the field, which has been listening all along, responds not to desperation, but to coherence, stability, and unshakable self-certainty. You're not waiting, you're becoming. And the version of you on the other side, they've already received what you're asking for. Your only job is to not abandon yourself before it arrives.